I'm Josh Swartz,
And I'm William Illingworth.
host of the High Tech Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now.
Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others.
Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My Ed Tech Life. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday. I know yesterday we were off. It was Labor Day, so there was no show, but I'm excited to be back here behind the mic for all of you. And I'm excited about today's conversation with our amazing guest. But before I introduce him, I would definitely want to take some time to thank each and every single one of you that continuously listens to our show, is checking out the videos, sharing all our content. I really appreciate every single one of you because, again, if it isn't for you, we wouldn't be here. And thank you so much for making My Ed Tech Life what it is today. Definitely appreciate all the love, the shares, the follows, and again, the subscribing to the YouTube channel. Thank you guys. As you know, we're trying to get to 1,000 followers, but thank you for joining our wonderful conversations. And hopefully today, I am really excited about today because we're definitely going to be talking about creativity and how important that is and how much we love creativity. So before we get into that, I would love to introduce you to a fellow creator, somebody that is definitely inspiring to me, and somebody that if you haven't been following him on socials, especially on X or Twitter, whatever you prefer to call it, definitely check him out because he is definitely very creative and very innovative with using various platforms and bringing this how can I say this contagious creativity to his district. And so I would love to welcome Mr. Willie Thomas III to the show. Willie, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good, Fonz. Thank you so much for having me out here. I mean, I'm really pumped, really excited to be here. I know that this is something that after watching and then visiting with you, got to meet you out there in Utah, I was like, okay, this guy's for real. He's legit. Got to connect with him. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And that's the exciting part about it. It was such an honor to get to be up there in Utah, but, and making those connections, but seeing some of the various creators, Adobe, education creators that were out there and just having a blast and learning from one another and being able to see some amazing things and continue to make those connections obviously was great. And I must say that I think we had the biggest crowd there from Texas there in Utah. So that was wonderful. We were representing. Hey, Shannon Moore, we've got Shannon joining us.
Shannon.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Appreciate all the love. Thank you so much. And it's great to see you, my friend. Shannon is amazing. We've definitely had some great conversations here on the podcast. So Shannon, big shout out to you and the work that you continue to do, my friend. Keep doing, keep inspiring, and just bring that creativity anywhere you are. So thank you so much for joining us in the chat. So Willie, let's go ahead and get started because again, being able to make that connection in real life was just something that was amazing. Being able to speak with you, hearing a little bit about your story, where you're coming from, your school district, the type of work that you do. So I definitely want to hear a little bit about that. But, for any audience members that may be joining us or rewatching or re-listening to this episode that may not be familiar with your work yet, can you give us a little brief introduction and what your context in education is?
Yeah, so I am the director of media integration at Robinson ISD, right outside of Waco, Texas. For those of you who don't know where Robinson is, yes, we're right down the street from Chip and Joanna. Those big old silos that are out there. We're down there, and Robinson, it's a little suburb neighborhood out there, right outside, about 1.5 miles. And basically, what I do is kind of in the name-ish, being a director of media integration. So we're talking from communication type things to live streaming to instructional technology to, I'm over all the media centers within our district and all the different platforms and different themes and you ordering books. I mean, it's all that stuff too. Hey, we need a drone pic of this, particular thing happening with our parking lot or senior day or stuff like that. So I embody a lot of the creativity, I want to say, when it comes to um, working with students and working with teachers inside of our district and pushing those boundaries. So you name it. And I'm that go getter guy. I mean, hey, let's give it a shot. Let's
I
try that.
love it. I love it. And I love that spirit too, just that energy that you're bringing. And, again, I know that it's, at least in relation to my district, it's a little bit smaller district, but I know that they definitely keep you busy. And I know
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're very busy with a lot, especially with media technology and being able to bring in a lot of these tools into the classrooms, which we're going to go ahead and talk about a little bit about that. But definitely that energy is for sure contagious, and being able to meet you and just speaking with you, even the pre-chat, I was like, this is going to be a great, great conversation. So I'm thankful for that. So Willie, let's go ahead, and I would love for you to share a little bit about your origin story. And I love to start this way because I love when the guests that are here on the show kind of make those connections with our audience members. And we know that every superhero has an origin story. And like I always tell my guests,
Oh, yeah.
you are a guest on the My EdTech Life podcast. I really liken you to that sense, into like a superhero because of the work that you're doing, and whether it's in the creator space, whether it's in the AI space or any space whatsoever. And we know that every superhero has an origin story. So I would love to hear a little bit more about the Willie Thomas III origin story. And usually I like to start with this question as you lead us into your origin story.
Okay. All right.
Was education something that you wanted to go into, or was that something that kind of came a little bit down the road?
Man, I tell you what, that's a pretty huge question. First, I want to start out with the whole origin story thing. Huge Star Wars fan. I don't know if you can see that back over here. Huge. This my son actually made this from my office here. Huge Marvel fan as well. And we're going back and watching all those origin stories of the different superheroes when they came together. So I love that you use that instead of backstory, origin story. So I think that's pretty cool. Education has been, my mom, she worked in education for 32, 33 plus years. And so going to school, my biggest thing when I was in school, especially in high school, uh, I'm just going to be 100% honest. I wanted to play basketball. NBA, I was up there with Jordan, you know what I'm saying? That's what we were doing back in the day. Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant. That was me. That was me. That's where I wanted to be. Now, educational wise, I was really big into programming. One of the things that when I went to school to play ball at the University of Houston, and I got my degree out there, and I felt like football was a good avenue for me because growing up, college really wasn't in the cards as far as getting everything paid for, stuff like that. But I know that in order to better myself, I needed to go do something. And so God definitely stepped in my life right there and provided the football. It didn't help. It helped a lot that I was like 330 pounds, 6'4", coming out of high school. And so that helped a lot. But what's funny was I was never really good at math. And so I had to drop that major when it came to coding. And so then I went into technology leadership and supervision, which is what I got my degree in. So it's funny living in Houston and really wanting to do more training with people because I really like working with people. I like helping people, I like engaging folks in the things they do, and I like teaching them. And so when we moved back to Waco, there wasn't a ton of industry like there are, ExxonMobil, places like that down there in Houston. And my wife is like, she was actually in education. She went to universities as well, got her education degree, and started teaching out here locally. And I was like, what are we going to do? What am I going to do? She's like, well, teaching and training, they kind of fall in the same thing. I said, oh, okay, all right. She's like, education it's kind of like training smaller people. I said, okay, I guess we'll give it a try. And sure enough, 17 years later, here I am, still teaching and leading folks. And I think one of the best parts, probably finds about this growth and this journey that I've gone through, that I realized, I'm just going to put that out there. We have one of the most important jobs on the face of the earth. Like we create all the other jobs, like, those other students, those doctors, those professions. So, even, those YouTubers, those gamers, those people like they start with us. They start with someone in their life who's educating them to help get them to the right place. So that's kind of basically how I started out in education. Like I said, it wasn't something on the forefront. It was something that, like I said, just kind of happened, and I just kind of took it by the reins and been running with it ever since.
I love it, and I love, like you said, it's like really just God had a plan,
Had a
and this
plan.
is this is where you ended up, and you've been so fruitful and productive because I mean, being 17 years, this is my 17th year in education. So I guess
Oh,
we started at the same time as
yes.
well, so that's been, again, it was one of those kind of fork in the road moments for me also as well, where I had to make a choice to transition into a job that would give me a little bit more time to be readily available for my parents, as my dad was ill at the time, but now he's doing great. He'll be 87 next year.
Oh,
But
wow. That's
that
awesome.
led me to education. And again, 17 years later, here I am, and here you are, and here we are. And I absolutely agree with you 100% that, in education, that is really the foundation for everything else that we see as far as other jobs and so on,
Mhm.
because every person had a teacher, every person had somebody who taught them, who kind of guided them and influenced and inspired them to do what it is that they're doing. So that's wonderful. And I love the fact that you kind of saw that training aspect, and how you said, well, now you're training little people, like the little youngins and everything. But, it really comes kind of like with that servant leadership and a servant's heart. So that's wonderful. And I'm glad that you stuck through an education, because now, I mean, we got to meet, and now we get to have this great conversation centered around things that we love, which is technology,
Yes.
creativity, and education. So I love it. All right. So Willie, I wanted to ask you now, as your role, like you mentioned, it encompasses the director of media integration there at your school district. So I want to ask you now, obviously, with so much technology, so many different platforms, and of course, we know, AI. Everybody's been talking
Oh my
about
goodness.
it, and
Yes.
starting the school year with maybe those conversations. But I want to ask you, maybe from your experience in these 17 years, and maybe with what you're experiencing now, and maybe looking a little bit into the future, how do you see the role of media and technology shaping, a little bit of the future of education? So maybe you can share some examples of maybe what may be going on in your school district, and then maybe in a larger scale what you may be seeing in your area.
Well, when you think about, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to communication, when it comes to uh, our students connecting with other students, connecting with other professionals and things like that in school, part of what we're trying to do a lot is bring in, and you hear this a lot, but really trying to hone in, bringing in those real world experiences. But I like to call them real world, those real world connections, not connections to Willie Thomas type connection, who was born in 81. I'm talking about connections to my daughter right now, who's 14, who's a freshman. Those things that she's connecting to, those things that she is bringing, that she has a passion for, and that is going to lead her when she gets out of the classroom. And so I see technology being a extremely fundamental, instrumental, transformational vehicle to get students to where they need to be quicker and easier. Uh, I don't want to be the end all be all of information in education, because if that's the case, then we're doomed. Like I don't know everything. I don't pretend to know everything, but we try to utilize the technology in our district to help students become more seekers, more thinkers, more finders of information and analyzers of information. Because holy cow, it's so easy now. My daughter, like I said, 14, just got on Instagram. It took a lot for me to get her to let that happen. Um, but it's so funny. I was so worried about what Instagram would do to her instead of worrying about what she would do to Instagram. And it's been pretty amazing the things that she's been sharing and being that big time role model, influencer for her friends. The things that she's posting, which I'm sitting there going, wow, and she's sharing things with me. And I'm like, well, how did you do that? How did you create that? And she's also sharing her learning through her social media platform. So it doesn't just stop at the classroom. It's actually extending and going on and sharing her faith too as well through that. And I'm extremely proud of that. So like I said, when it comes to our technology and our students and providing them that platform that helps make them more successful and actually makes them more competitive uh, around other students and around other people in the world that's coming up to them. I think personally, it's extremely vital because like I said, without it, we're kind of stuck in the mud. I hate to say it, I mean, we really are. We need it, but we got to make sure that we're using it and we're teaching them appropriately how they can use to help benefit them in the future when it comes to technology in classroom, even in our libraries and media centers. I know that's one thing we recently started using StreamYard with our daily announcements in our intermediate, which is 4th through 6th, and our elementary, which is 2 and 3. So now students are doing what we're doing here, developing scripts, developing backgrounds, developing lower thirds, and then also learning and using those technology, using those terms. Because guess what? Now they can walk into a business or walk into a church or walk into a school and be like, "Oh yeah, I know about lower thirds. I know about framing. I know about super source." Like those are big vocabulary words coming out of school, right? I mean, and preparing them for our high school as well, getting them into our AV and stuff like that. So like I said, I'm a big scaffolding person, preparing them for life. Hope I didn't say too much, but
No, not at all. Actually, everything that you hit on was really great. And I love the way you actually broke it down because, oftentimes there's such a negative connotation as far as technology, whether, oh, it's too much tech in the classrooms, too much screen time, or the students are, in this case, like your daughter, students they're using way too much stuff outside, on their own. But I think like I love the example that you gave about your daughter as far as, you know, not everybody's going to go out there and, do maybe what people think are going to do on
right.
Instagram and posting some of the negative stuff and things of that sort. But what I loved about it and the way that you were sharing is just how your daughter's still sharing her learning outside the four walls. So, oftentimes it's like, nope, this is school. School's right here, these brick and mortar four walls. But then the students are able to communicate, like you said, your daughter maybe creating some videos, sharing her learning, and being able to be a great influence on her classmates and her peers and sharing that learning, and they're learning from her. And I think that's something that is so great that, right now it's everybody in this sense is becoming an educator or a teacher of sorts, but maybe they don't think about it that way. They just say, hey, they're an influencer. So I was thinking maybe we, instead of calling ourselves teachers, we can call ourselves influencers.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
In
Yes.
that sense, because you're influencing and sharing that learning. But that digital component, digital citizenship and digital literacy are so big on that. So I want to ask you a little bit before we get into a little bit more of that creative, the what I love is the Willie awesome sauce that you share on Twitter with all the Adobe stuff. But
Huh.
as far as digital literacy and digital citizenship, what are some of the things that you are a proponent of, or that you may bring into your district to help your students be successful in that digital literacy component, but also very cautious and being good digital citizens?
Well, I know one of the things that hits home a lot, especially with our younger kids moving into our older generation of students, is yes, sharing is caring, but also making sure that you are being aware of the things that you are sharing out there uh, to whatever that audience is that you're sharing that to, making sure that you're providing because it's super easy now to like remix stuff and to take other people's things and kind of put it out there as yourself, but giving that credit where credit is due, and making sure that, because that's the thing is that you don't want that happening to yourself. It's really good. It's really awesome to be able to, you know, utilize things that people have put out there and kind of make them either better or use them a little bit in a different way. But taking that responsibility upon yourself, to saying that this is my work, not citing those things. Like we work on that a lot especially in our media labs and things like that when it comes to our students, and making sure that they are using things appropriately. And the other big thing is, I hit it on it earlier, not taking everything at face value when it comes to your media literacy and your digital literacy. Do your research. There's so much, like you mentioned earlier with the AI. There's so much, and we've heard, I know it's an old term, fake news out there, but now it's not even really like fake news. You know what I mean? It's artificial news. You know what I mean? It's a whole new gambit of things and ways that students need to be able to analyze and be able to decipher what's real, what's not real, finding those different types of sources, many different types of sources to back up, being able to debate conversation, to being able to debate ideas, like teaching them those things when it comes to being a good digital citizen in this day and age. It's one of the things I love we talk about with Adobe is when they did the digital citizenship cards, working with our students. I think that was really huge for them to actually sit down and think about, okay, how am I really acting and portraying myself online to other folks? And then the information that I am finding online, how do I go about analyzing that? How do I go about researching that? And these are skills that, Fonz, I use daily. Like I'm trying to learn something. Let me see what happened. Something broke in my, what was it that broke? I want to say it's like in my refrigerator or something. I can't remember what it is. What's the first thing we do is we hop on YouTube. I didn't call anybody. I was like, I'm gonna hop on YouTube. Now, I'll be honest. I'd be lying if I said I fixed it on the first try, but the fact of the matter is that I tried. And not only that, I didn't even just watch the first YouTube video that came up either. I used my research. Okay, looked at the reviews, looked at the ratings, looked at, how long it was, how many people actually watched this video, what this, how accurate was this information? Did it match the actual refrigerator that I have? Like, you know what I mean? Like those are things that we have to teach. Those are daily and lifelong skills that we have to teach our students to be able to do when it comes to being, digital citizenship and things like that.
Excellent. And that even goes into being creative in the aspect of, hey, let me just improvise, adapt,
Yeah.
and so on. So, hey, sometimes you got to find a creative solution, and you go to these platforms and you find some creative solutions. I mean, sometimes if you don't have what you need to, let's say, either pry open something or change a part, there's always a video that says, well, if you don't have this, try this. And, you're sharing that creativity. So going into that, Willie, I know, like we mentioned earlier, we had the pleasure of meeting one another in Utah, at the Adobe headquarters, that we went over there, and it was such a great experience. So obviously you and I are very much into the creativity or amplifying creativity within classrooms. That's one of the things that we love to do. So I want to ask you, as far as, creativity, what inspires Willie Thomas III to become creative? And then also, how do you give yourself or give that creativity back to your students and maybe your staff? So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. What inspires me to be creative? I'm always looking for either that next big fix or that next big, oh, wow, that's pretty cool type moment. Give you a great example. We are doing our house system, Ron Clark house system at Robinson ISD. And one of the big things that, it's funny, we went there, we visited there, even when I'm at church or I'm at places, everybody, and my wife even tells me too, I'm watching a video or whatever, and I sit there and I go, I wonder what kind of pattern those lights are running right now. Like it's just, I'm not even watching or looking at, oh, wow, yeah, they are talking and singing and stuff. But did you see that scanner? Is that a studio DJ? Like those are things. And so then I take that and I'm like, okay, I can recreate that, because I love the challenge too behind those things. And so that's exactly what I did. I went, we got a sham system, got 4 moving headlights, got 4 bar lights, and taught myself how to program that thing together so that way we could put on a show. Because I want to put our best foot forward on things. And I think too, that's where that creativity part comes out of. It's the challenge and wanting to like just really, really try things out and push myself and do things up. Now, I won't lie. Once again, I won't say it didn't work out the very first time, the second time, or even the third time. I'm sitting there going, why is that light pointing over here when I need it to be pointing over there? And you're just, you kind of work through things as well. And so and that's one of the things too, I work with our students and tell them your first attempt on the things that you're creating is not always going to be the best attempt. I said most, more than likely it's going to be your worst attempt. But that it's those iterations that you do after that you're learning off of those different attempts when it comes to being creative in the classroom with our students and with our teachers. I know sometimes they get a little nervous because they look at the things that either I make or the students make and they go, oh, yeah, mine's not going to look like that. Who cares? Like, you did it. This is about you. This is that personal creativity that's coming out of you. That's what they want to see. That's what students want to see. And that's where you really start to show your personality when it comes to that. So like I said, it's all about trying new things, all about really being, I'm trying to use the word like aggressive when it comes to being a creative. Like, don't hold back, let it go. Let it go when you want to make those videos. Yeah, I can make a video of, maybe like you've been saying, the animate talking, but wait a minute, maybe I can put myself in there and then it can talk to me. But then on top of that, maybe I can fly in from this other place. And because the whole not having a green screen thing has been game changing. That's been pretty awesome. So like I said, those are things that when it comes to utilizing, pushing creativity, just going for it. And you never know who you're inspiring out there by them watching and seeing the things that you're doing and saying, wow, if they can do that, let me try that. And then I want you to hear me, America. And because I know America's watching, because you're a very popular dude. I want them to hear me. I want you to go beyond me. I'm challenging you to create and push beyond me, because I want to learn from you too. Like, that's what this is all about, helping and learning each other, or learning from each other.
Absolutely. I love that. Just that enthusiasm and that passion. Like you said, many times it's the imposter syndrome gets in the way. And I think even as educators, being in the classroom, that imposter syndrome, because let's say that your neighbor down the hall has got this awesome lesson, and maybe they've got, a platform on lockdown that they're using, and then all of a sudden, you don't yet, but that imposter syndrome hits, and sometimes we just get that analysis paralysis and like, oh my gosh, what if I try it and then I fail, and so on. But I love what you said. It's just really just going for it. And for me, like with my teachers, my thing with them is like, hey, there's nothing you can break. Just get clicky with it. You can always refresh, sign out,
I love it.
and sign back in, but just get clicky with it. Don't hold back, because that's like what you said. I want them to be better than me, do it better than I did, because then I might learn a thing or two. And
Yeah.
and that's what we want. We just want to inspire that person to really take it to that next level and be like, wow, I never even thought about that. Like, wow, thank you so much for sharing. So Willie, I want to ask you, as far as creativity, like I feel that having creativity is something that's very crucial within our classrooms and allowing for that time. But we know that here in Texas, many times from third grade all the way to ninth grade, it's all about STAR. And sometimes I feel that teachers really focus on that. And I understand why, but I think that we're losing out on so much potential from our students and them being able to learn and present their work in different modalities, in creative modalities, rather than just the standard, formative assessment and so on. So I want to ask you, how crucial is it for you to see more creativity being integrated into the classroom setting? And what ways, maybe have you helped some teachers at least be a little bit more consistent with allowing that creativity in the classroom?
Well, Fonz, like you said, in Texas, it is about that STAR. And just like in Texas, we're about that football too, as well. So I like to liken it as STAR is it's that box, it's that field, it's our parameters that we have got to work within. Like it is. That's our measuring stick. That's our goal line. That's where we're trying to get to. Now, like you said, not every single coach runs the exact same plays to get the ball from the 30-yard line, the 40-yard line, and to that end zone. So us as educators, it is crucial that we utilize different tools like podcasting, letting students be able to interview. Like I know one of the things that working with a teacher did, where a student was actually interviewing Christopher Columbus, and Christopher Columbus was the actual other student. Well, if you think about that, both students have to know something about Christopher Columbus to be able to interview the other student and to be able to ask those questions. You can't just make that stuff up. You have to actually have your facts down first. Being able to create video. I love creating video, love creating reels. But giving those students opportunities to not just, like, once again, create for you, Miss Smith, but create for the world. Letting them know ahead of time, hey guys, so we're going to make a reel, make a TikTok, make a whatever it is that you're going to be making. But I'm not going to be the only one to see this. I want you to, think about and analyze, what would this historical event look like if it happened today? If it happened in not just today, but if it happened in our neighborhood right now, where we live, okay? Like, how would you react to that? How would other people react to that? How would you get people to jump on board on your side? And then give them that platform of debate, from them doing a flyer, from them doing some type of, even to the point, I think we've gone through and created coding games as well for our RVRs and our Spheros and stuff like that, for students to be able to code a movie. One of my amazing teachers out there, James Jenkins, is one of our culminating projects. Students, instead of just coding a robot, coding Sphero, if you don't know what Sphero is, it is a robot, but they coded it and then made it the star of its own movie. So the different students different robots were playing different characters within the movie, but they were also working on their video skills. They were working on their authoring skills. They were working on their scripting skills. So think about all those teaks that you're hitting right there. Author's purpose. You're talking about persuasive text. You're talking, it's really easy to do if we take the time to think about it and do it. I get it, Fonz. Is so, sometimes we feel like it's so much simpler to just let me pick up where I left off, right? It worked yesterday. It worked last year. Okay. What's the harm in me just doing it again? Well, I'll tell you, the harm is those aren't the same students that were sitting in that desk last year. Those aren't the same students that were sitting in that desk, 3-4 months ago before we left for a break. So you have to invest that time and opportunity to your students. But here's the best part. You ready? Here's the best part. We're here to help. That's what our job is all about. Reach out to us. And on top of that, one of the best, I think, sessions that I ever did with our campuses was, I had one of our campus digital specialists. She came in and with her class and things that she taught their students. So it was called My Students Know What. And we, instead of teaching teachers about how the projects or how these different programs, platforms work, we went through and talked about, and we showed them, here are the things that your students can do. Mind blowing. They're like, oh my gosh. So like that actual day, they're signing projects, they're doing, project-based learning type stuff, problem-based learning type stuff, based on what their students already know how to do. And then having students come in and teach other students who struggled with that in their class. And then guess what happened after that? They come to us, this is great. I love that my students know how to do this, but we want to know how to do this too. Okay, I got you. Here's the deal. We're here to help. And I love that if we can just get off in there and just show them that it's okay, Everything's going to be all right when it comes to finding different ways for students to demonstrate their learning.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of teachers, Willie, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of them, they sometimes feel that it's not okay to not know everything, but it's completely okay to not know everything, because we don't all know everything. But like you mentioned,
Nope.
there's somebody that may know how to do that that thing that you're looking for or trying to do or trying to accomplish. And then that's when you reach out for help. One of the things that I love that you shared within this story that you're telling me, with the kids coming in, obviously the kids working in class, but just that collaboration, that learning experience, and I think what I love about that is, again, you're creating an experience for them where they're, like you mentioned, they're hitting all their teaks that they need to hit, their standards, what they're learning. They're just presenting it in a different way. But now you've got that discussion amongst friends, that discourse, and that learning. I feel like sometimes it really does become part of them, that when they continue from year to year, it's something that they can continue to pull from
Yes.
and
Yes.
glean from. And I think that many times we let those opportunities slip by the wayside. But again, it's our job, like we mentioned, as like for yourself as director of media special. I'm sorry, I forgot the title. What
It's a
was it?
long one. That we've shortened it several times over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
The director of media integration.
There you go, director of media integration, and I'm an instructional software specialist, where it's kind of very similar but just different
Yes.
titles. But
Yes.
we're there to help because we're passionate about it. And but I love that you shared that idea, because now I can kind of take that idea and say, okay, you know what? If we need to get a little bit more of that teacher buy-in, let them see what students can do, because oftentimes
Yes.
it's not so much like, okay, it's going to be a waste of time, but then it's like, oh, I'm going to have to teach them how to do this and teach them how to do that. And later on, it's they become the teachers, because I know I learned from them. And I always tell the story with my kiddos. It's like, I let them go to town on a Chromebook back in the day, and so every block I looked like an expert, because I was learning from the class before. That by the end of the
Mhm.
day, the kids saw me like the expert, but I had learned all of that from the previous classes. And so in a way, even though they didn't get to work with each other directly, they still learned from one another because of what was passed along from class period to class period. And I think, to me, that's so powerful and oftentimes overseen. And because it's the nature of the business. It's more like we focus on the timeline, on the curriculum, where it is that we need to be, and we don't focus too much on
Mhm.
allowing multiple modalities of presenting content, allowing the students to be creative, whether it's through a graphic. They can use, obviously, Adobe Express. They can create a video. They can create just a nice little infographic.
Mhm.
And so all the tools are there, and that's one thing that I loved about it. So that's great. So now, as we're kind of coming towards the tail end of the interview, I wanted to ask you, as far as some of your experiences, because there may be other directors in your role, or like myself, instructional software specialists that go out and train some teachers. I want to ask you, like, what would be Willie Thomas the third, maybe like top three kind of tips or advice to kind of help teachers and ease them into the use of technology?
Hmm. I'd say take it slow. I mean, at the very beginning, find that one thing, those small wins. Uh, if it is that you're just wanting to create support video for your students to help support them when they're at home, or during their off time, it doesn't have to be some type of viral trending TikTok video that you see that you think is going to get all their attention and stuff like that. Literally take it slow. And then you can kind of bump up to maybe the annotations, and then bump up to maybe adding some music, stuff like that. But find your comfort level. Don't try to compare yourself. Remember, comparison is the devil. Do not try to compare yourself to what other creators and other people are doing out there, because you're just going to frustrate yourself, and you're never going to start. Uh, I'd say also, when it comes to that picking that right tool, think about, once again, your pedagogy first. And when it comes to picking that tool, don't pick the tool and then decide what I'm going to learn. What is it that I want out of my students first? Find that out. Figure out what that is before you jump into, here's what I'm going to use. And then the third thing is, don't limit yourself and don't limit your students. Don't do it. Make sure that you give them every opportunity, and yourself every opportunity, to explore themselves and explore their creative side. So that way they can, once again, continue that buy-in, continue that growth, and continue, the learning that they've learned, that it sticks with them for years and years to come. I tell you, one of the best conversations I had was on a way down to Austin, Texas, where I took two of our AV students and we went and videoed our high school band inside of the rotunda, the outdoor rotunda. I'm gonna tell you, that right there was a crazy situation. There's zero Wi-Fi. There's no electricity off in there at all. And on top of that, it was about to rain. But we went in there, we problem solved a lot of different things. We did our homework beforehand. If you don't own a Jackery, get you a Jackery, by the way. I would love those things. It's a little, you can look it up. And so, but provided that power for us. But giving our students those opportunities and those hands-on, relatable opportunities to learn and those skills has affected them and helped them out so much more. When it comes to being more self-sufficient, being self-starters, being, people who will grow and fight through problems. So yeah, those are my three things, man. Like I said, love education, love working with teachers. And it's been a blast being able to do that and motivate those teachers each and every day.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much, Willie, for sharing those great tips and just really for just this wonderful conversation where you really shared your passion, and obviously that leadership and that servant's heart is definitely shows and in the way that you speak and the way that you talk about the way that you work with teachers and educators. So thank you so much for having that type of heart and bringing
Right.
it to school each and every day and sharing it with everybody around you. And of course, also for being such an inspiration to myself too, as a somebody that I look up to, because I look at your videos on social media and everything that you create and I'm like, man, Willie just really takes it to the next level. And that's great because again, like you mentioned, that's your goal. You want to try and do as much as you can and push the boundaries so that others that come after you see what you do and then maybe take it that next step forward. So I love what you said, and I'm going to reiterate it a little bit, that you said you never know who's watching what you're doing and the type of influence that you may have on them that
Yes.
can definitely change their trajectory or their path and lead them into just something completely different. So I mean, everything that you do and that you put out is wonderful. So thank you, Willie. I really appreciate your shares this evening and again your enthusiasm. But before we go, and you've seen the show, you know that we always end the show with the following three questions. And before we get into those three questions, I definitely want to give a huge shout out to our newest sponsor, who is Goose Chase. So thank you so much, Goose Chase, for sponsoring our show. So if you're interested in Goose Chase, guys, please make sure you go to goosechase.com. But Goose Chase allows you to dive into the world of interactive experiences, and it is also the ultimate platform for creating delightful scavenger hunts. And here's a treat for every single viewer of My Ed Tech Life. If you go to Goose Chase and you're interested in a plan for yourself as an educator or a plan for your school, you can use the code MyEdTech10, MyEdTech10, and you can take 10% off any plan, whether it's a school-wide plan or whether it's a district plan or whether it is your personal plan. So please make sure you check them out. Thank you so much, Goose Chase, for sponsoring our show. All right, so Willie, let's go ahead and get into it.
All
The
right.
last three questions of
Hit
our
me.
show. All right, so again, going back to that superhero theme, as you know, kryptonite was the one thing that weakened Superman. So I want to ask you, in the current state of education, what would you say is your current edu kryptonite?
All right. Fonzo, I've said this, I don't know how many times, by being honest. I'm straight up putting it out there. When it comes to utilizing AI in the classroom for students, I'm still learning, man. To me, right now, it's still so super new, constantly changing. So I'm constantly trying to educate myself on it. I see the benefits, but especially when it comes to our teachers and time and and helping them create different types of assessments and different types of lessons, and also with the AI when it comes to photo generating, even video generating. I mean, it's been pretty awesome, especially with this side of Premiere Pro and stuff like that. But that's where I'm like, that's where it's like, oh my gosh, so you don't hear me sharing about that a lot because I don't, I'm just not there yet. And it's okay to admit that. Once again, find that comfort zone of where you're at. So,
Perfect. Love it. Excellent. All right, Willie, next question. Question number 2 is, if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Okay. So with billboard, one of those digital billboards out there, it's kind of flashing, maybe different colors going on. So I would put up one of my favorite scriptures is, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. So that's Colossians 3:23. Because whenever we wake up every single morning, so I have the person that I text every morning to when we work out, we get up at 4:30, get a workout in at 5:00, and we're that accountability partner. And I try to make sure every single text emphasizes that, putting in everything that we have to start our day. And then when we're done with that, to go into the day, putting in everything you have. Because once again, we're not doing this for the people around us. We're doing this for him. Okay. We're doing this for God. And he's given me gifts. So why in the world am I not sharing them to the best of my abilities out there for everyone? So that's what I put up there.
Excellent, Willie. Love it. Thank you so much. All right. And the last question, Willie, is, if you can turn one of your hobbies or favorite pastimes into a profession, what would it be?
Oh, absolutely. It'd be woodworking. I love building things. I love challenging myself when it comes to building things. In the very beginning, it was almost like recipes. I've used annawhite.com. And then I've gradually, just kind of come off of that and said, okay, how can I take that skills that I've learned and then build something original and build something, from scratch, something that also will help fill the needs of my family or fill the needs of somewhere else or whatever it is. But I would definitely love to be a woodworker and work with my hands and start building things as well. So that'd be cool.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Willie. I appreciate it again, all the shares, your enthusiasm, your heart. Like I said, you are just a really just all around stand up person. And I've had the pleasure and blessing to get to meet you in person. And that is wonderful. And I'm glad that we got to connect here this evening and have a wonderful conversation. And obviously to all our audience members as well, those of you that are joining us live, we got Sherry Fleischer that joined us here live. We've got Scott Fleischer also who joined us live. We had Shannon Moore who joined us live in the very beginning too as well. And to all our audience members that are catching this on the replay or watching this again on the replay there on YouTube, thank you so much for making my EdTech life what it is today. We do what we do for you so we can bring you some amazing conversations to help inspire you, whether it's in the world of technology, creativity, entrepreneurship, whatever the case may be. We love to bring you the best of the best, and it's all for you. So thank you so much for all of your support. Please make sure that you stop by our website at myedtech.live, where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 228 wonderful episodes with creators, educators, founders, edupreneurs, all sorts of guests that we've had. And I guarantee you will definitely find something specifically for you, something that you can definitely go in and glean some knowledge nuggets from and sprinkle them onto what you are already doing great. So please make sure you stop by our website. And also, if you would love to contribute to our mission of connecting educators and creators one show at a time, feel free to stop by our merch store as well. We know that fall is already around the corner. We know fall conference season is there. So we definitely have some great sweatshirts. We've got some great caps that'll keep you warm too as well. Or just if you want to lounge around in, as you know, all of that goes back into our show so we can continue to go hard and bring you some amazing conversations. So thank you again, my friends, as always, for all of your support. And until next time, my friends, don't forget, stay techie.